agreement should include a permitted use license that licenses the beneficiary to use the source code to modify the software for maintenance purposes, to compile the modified source code, and to use and copy the maintained, modified, or compiled software as permitted in the original license agreement for the licensed software. The permitted use license may need to be expanded to include the right to enhance and update the source code and software to keep the software current and useful, the right to create derivative works beyond maintenance purposes, and the right for the licensee to use independent contractors or third-party support services for these purposes should also be included. Although further distribution of the software is usually prohibited, there can be some situations where it is important for the permitted use license to include the right for the beneficiary to distribute the source code to others. For example, a beneficiary who is a VAR or OEM may need to promise its customers that it will provide source code to them if the VAR or OEM discontinues business or maintenance of the software. The specific needs of the beneficiary will dictate the appropriate scope of the permitted use license. The license should be broad enough for the reasonable needs of the beneficiary, but not unreasonably broad from the perspective of the licensor. The permitted use license should be granted at the time the escrow was entered into, so that the beneficiary can elect to retain the license under the Intellectual Property Bankruptcy Protection Act in the event of a subsequent bankruptcy by the licensor. In particular, see Section 365N of the U.S. Bankruptcy Code, which allows a licensee to elect to retain a license if the corresponding license agreement is rejected by a bankruptcy, trustee, or debtor in possession. It is important that the license be granted prior to the filing of the bankruptcy petition so that the beneficiary can elect to retain the permitted use license in the event that the license agreement or escrow agreement is rejected. It is a big mistake under U.S. bankruptcy law to trigger the grant of the permitted use license upon the filing of a bankruptcy petition. A post-petition license is not eligible for retention under Section 365N. Only a pre-petition license can be retained if the license agreement or escrow agreement is rejected by a trustee in bankruptcy. As a practical matter, the timing of this grant is not a real threat to the licensor, since the only copy of the source code to which the beneficiary is entitled is physically held by the escrow company, and the escrow company is under a contractual obligation not to release the source code until after the release condition has occurred, and even then, only in accordance with the release procedure of the escrow agreement. The escrow agreement should also include a simple license granted by the licensor to the escrow company to copy and release the source code and other escrowed materials and to otherwise take any action needed for the escrow, so that the escrow company can also elect to retain its license in the event the trustee or debtor in possession rejects the escrow agreement.